Third attempt. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 2021 YzeUp Learn from Her Experience series. I am on the other side at this moment. Usually I'm the one asking the questions, but today I have Laika who will be asking me the questions. I'm on the spotlight. We're going to try this again. Sorry, our sound has been a bit problematic. I'm hoping that in our third attempt, things will go very well. I'm just letting Laika in.
Oh,
Let's do it now.
third time's a charm. Can you hear me now?
Third time is a charm. I can sort of hear you now. Yes, much better.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Just again, like I said, for the platform, for always availing yourself and sharing your skills, and upskilling us, and on the job training, for all the opportunities you create for young people. We really honor you. We thank you so much. I just have a few questions for you because I would like to learn for myself as a brand. I'll go right into it. How do you create a brand? How do I, as Laika, create a brand?
Sure. Okay, she hit me straight there. Right. So how do you create a brand? A brand, first of all, we have to define what a brand is. What is a brand, right? And I always say it's interesting that if you actually Google brand, you're going to get something about slavery and how they used to essentially brand people, or sometimes brands are about, like a cow, you have to brand it. So you would actually take a thing and actually put a stamp on it to kind of say this is actually mine. So it's very interesting that the word brand itself has actually got some negative connotations to it. But on the positive side, a brand is really a sum of a total of a whole lot of things. It is how people perceive you. It is, there's beautiful quotes that I always start my sessions with. A personal brand is, according to one of the quotes, what people say about you when you're not in the room. And I always keep quiet and pause on that. So imagine you are presenting to somebody, or imagine you're meeting somebody for the first time, or imagine you're at a network event and you left some form of impression on somebody, and you walk out of the room, and it's always nice to know what is it that those people are actually going to say about you. But that's people's perceptions, right? But before that, the brand you would have been created already. So for me, a brand is a sum total of who you are. Who you are is made up of your core values as well as your personal values. It's your personality, it's your image, it's your expertise, it's your experience, it's the skills that you have gained over a period of time. It's really just at the core who you are. Best way to define. So that's what a brand is. And how do you create a brand? It always starts with, as I said, from the inside. It starts with you. The work starts with you. I've been asked before that, is it true that a brand can be created by people? So if you put yourself out there, the people can define you, literally. They can be like, oh, Laika is like this, and Laika is this kind of person. And my answer to that is always yes, it is true that people have perceptions of you, and they will kind of describe who you are. But I call those, or we call those, secondary and third, right?
Okay.
There has to be the primary who Laika is. This is so important because if people are talking about you and you're kind of like, oh yeah, that is truly who I really am, you know what I mean? They're really describing who I am, then that's great. But if people are talking about you and they're describing you in a way that you're just like, whoa, sorry, what is that who I am? You know what I mean? It already starts saying that you have created a brand in the perception of what we call a consumer. And that consumer is interpreting whatever you're putting out there as this is brand Laika or brand Judith. So creating a brand is honestly a lot of work. It's not something that you just do overnight and wake up and you're going to be like, hello, my name is Judith and I'm a brand and this is what I'm going to do. Or hi, my name is Laika and I'm a brand and this is how I'm just going to go out there. It's a process. But the first process, I think there are three key elements that I would say are the super ingredients that need to go into you creating your brand. And step one is always who you are. Step two is how you show up as yourself. And step three for me is your legacy. And I think that's the hard one, especially when you're young, because you kind of have to start thinking about what is my legacy. If I were to leave this planet Earth, what would I want people to actually say about me? But I always say you're never too young to start with thinking about your brand. And if you start thinking that way, this is who I am, this is how I show up, and this is the legacy that I would like to leave when I leave, then you're already on the right track in building your personal brand. And I think it's important that I also separate the two on what a personal brand is and what a brand actually is, because as much as they are similar in how we execute, the execution is different for a normal brand and a personal brand. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, you answered my question, and you're about to answer the second question I'm about to ask. Is like, so what is a personal brand? How do I know the difference? And you mentioned, thinking of yourself as like thinking legacy, thinking long term.
Yeah.
Almost like you have to be aware of what kind of impact do I have on people? How do people think about me? How do people feel about me? I think these are things that we've been I don't know, we're not trained to think that way. We just walk in and we behave and we do certain things, and we don't realize that wherever you are, you leave a lasting impression, whether if you're kind and respectful, whatever, people will always remember you by that experience. So the next thing is, what is the difference between traditional brands and a personal brand?
Sure. So I think personal branding came after traditional branding. So we are borrowing items from traditional branding to then apply them in building personal brands. Now, this is a very important discussion right now. A traditional brand has a lot of resources behind it, and I mean financial. It has a lot of people working behind it. It has, and I always say this, it's interesting that brand managers change over time. Yes. So I don't know, think about your favorite brand. What is one of your favorite brands? Let me use that as an example.
Coca-Cola.
Oh. Yeah. Always top of mind. That is what we call a brand. It is top of mind no matter where you go. If I ask people generally is, well, if I ask any question regarding any marketing, Coca-Cola always comes up first, right? But you gotta understand that Coca-Cola, the brand, started off in the 1800s. It has been here for years, right? It has passed on from generation to generation. And what I'm trying to say there is that as a brand, Coca-Cola, they knew who they were. Remember, I said those are the three key ingredients. So they started off and said, we are going to create brand Coca-Cola. This is what it's going to look like. And interestingly enough, you'll see how it has evolved over time, right? Coca-Cola, what it looked like back then is not what it looks like now. So it evolves, but it doesn't steer too far away from what it actually is. And that's why it's important that I start saying that you must start off with who you are. So Coca-Cola would have defined, this is who we are, this is how we're packaged. Remember, I spoke about your image. This is the messaging that we'd like to get out there. So if people think about thirst, we need to be the first top of mind, right? The top of mind drink that people are going to think about, or brand. They would have created certain values. They would have created a personality. They would have created half this advertising that you see. But it starts off with who they were first, right? So they would have created Coca-Cola. Then it would have evolved over time. But in its evolving, it has different leaders. It has different brand managers. Directors that are coming in, and then continuing or coming up with new innovation to go. So that's a traditional brand. But what's interesting about traditional brands when we do some work and help brands, right, is we then come up with a brand personality. And the personality is about borrowing human persona. So we ask the question, if describing something to do with Coca-Cola, what was your question?
Yeah, you talk about when if Coca-Cola was a person and they walked into the room, what impact would they have? How would he or she command the room?
Correct. So you asked me the difference between a traditional and a personal brand, and I was explaining that a traditional brand has many resources behind it. It has many people working on it. It has many people working on it over time. So I was explaining that Coke has been here from the 1800s. A personal brand is you. It's only you. And I was saying that one of the quotes in personal branding is always to say, you've got to realize that you are Brand Inc., right? You are CEO of Brand Inc., and that Brand Inc. is who you are. So I am CEO of Judith Inc. You are CEO of Laika Inc. And as such, you are literally every single day of your life trying to manage and build on this personal brand called Judith Inc. or Laika Inc. So there are things that I was saying that we borrow from traditional brands and traditional marketing that we then apply to personal branding. But and one of the biggest examples I was saying is that a brand like Coca-Cola would take on a persona, and the persona is a human persona. So we generally ask as marketers, if Coca-Cola was walking into the room, how would you describe Coca-Cola, right? As a person, is it a he? Is it a she? Is Coca-Cola old or is it young? Is it hip or is it old? Is it fashionable? Is it not? Do you know what I mean? So traditional brands take on a personality of a human being. And then as human beings, we try to take on some personalities of a brand. But it's extremely important for us to understand that, as I said, Brand Inc., Judith Inc., Laika Inc., we are the only ones working on it. We don't have the resources that Coca-Cola has. We don't have people that come in and go, to innovate for us. We have to do all of that work by ourselves. Yeah. I also mentioned that brands evolve over time. So Coca-Cola would have looked like X in the 1800s. It looks like, Y now. But if you actually look at it, it's not that far off. We've seen Apple, for example, also rebrand and kind of take on a different shape, but it's not far off from where it actually started. So my whole point was to say, from a traditional brand as well as a personal brand, I go back to my three key areas. A brand knows who it is, or who he or she is. A brand then knows how to show up. So Coca-Cola will show up depending on the context, where we are in the 1900s and the 2000s and wherever we're going, right? As who it is as Coca-Cola. And thirdly, Coca-Cola is about its legacy. So what is the legacy that Coca-Cola is actually leaving behind? So as I said, it's really about borrowing from the traditional brand and applying it to the personal brand, but being super, super, super careful of the fact that we are human beings. And as human beings, we are flawed. And as human beings, we make mistakes. And the same thing can happen with traditional brands, but as I said, they've got resources behind them, right? They've got PR machines that are working behind it when it makes a mistake. But as a human being, when you make a mistake, it's only you. So this you are CEO of Laika Inc.
That's so important. Thank you for you changing my perspective. And I've never looked at brands as human beings and how they would influence people if they were human. I guess I'll take that and apply it to my own life. So as you mentioned, we don't have the resources. Laika decides she wants to be this powerful brand ambassador, brand influencer, whatever the terms are now. How do I start? What are the three most important things I should do? Where do I start?
Okay, so I think first I need to take away that perception that to be a brand, it's about you being an influencer or anything like that. As I said to you earlier, everyone is a personal brand. One, you don't have to be a celebrity. You don't have to be, I don't know, like somebody really famous in order for you to be a personal brand. We are all personal brands. We are all CEOs of our own selves, right? So step one is to first understand that. Step two is to first understand your objectives, or what we call your goals. What do you want to do in life, right? And why is personal branding important to you? So it's about the why. Why are you doing what you're doing? I want to get a new job. I want people to be aware of the skill set that I have. I want to progress in my job currently. So I want to be promoted. You know what I mean? So everybody has some kind of goal or some kind of objective, and that's the starting point. The starting point is, why is this important to me? And then it's about, who do I want to know about who I am? And that's why I'm starting off from. It's not about celebrities. And celebrities are important in a personal branding perspective, by the way. I have many friends that we're always trying to figure out how to build their brands as well. Yeah. But even they have their targeted communities. What are your targeted communities? Is it your friends? Is it your line manager? Is it the CEOs? Is it peers? Is it, you know what I mean? Like, is it the school? Is it the church? Who is it that needs to know about brand Laika or brand Judith, right?
Yeah.
Because by figuring out who those people are, it's extremely important that who Judith is and how she shows up among my community is the genuine and authentic Judith in those communities, if that makes sense. That's extremely important, because what ends up happening is I show up and I get a lot of people giving me flack. Oh, Judith is this and Judith is this and Judith is that. And if I actually just step back a little bit and look at the people that are giving me flack, I can actually start realizing these are not my targeted communities, right? These are just people that are randomly talking about me. And it's fine. They can have their perceptions. But if I go to my targeted communities, as I said, family, friends, workplace, line managers, what is it that they are saying about me? And is that in line with who I want to be or who I am showing up as? Does it kind of make sense? So it's extremely important, as I said, you start off with the why, the goals. You start off with the who I am. That's extremely important. And then it's about, who am I targeting? Who are my targeted communities? And then making sure that I hone into those targeted communities and I switch off the noise, because you are going to get noise from people that are not necessarily in your communities. And unfortunately, because as I say to you, we're human beings, a brand knows these are not my target audiences, therefore I'm going to switch them off. Because we're human beings, we don't know how to switch off. So if people are saying things about us, they start affecting who we are. But if you were to think as a brand, if you already know who you are and you know that these people are not your target audience, then it's not going to affect you. You're literally going to look at it and go, oh, that's nice. That's a nice opinion. Okay, that's your opinion of me. But you're not my targeted community. So therefore, continue talking, if that makes any sense. So yeah, so the starting, I will always say, like, it starts with who you are. And I think most of us go out into the world not knowing who we are. Therefore, we take on different personas. I just say to you, brands take on personas. You walk into a room, and because the room is being loud, so you start becoming loud. You walk into a workplace and everybody is dressing up X, therefore you also start becoming X. You know what I mean? You walk into a room and everybody's talking X way, therefore you also start becoming X way. So the problem with that is you're becoming a copycat. And I have no problem, by the way, with watching how people do what they do so that I can learn for myself. But if you don't know who you are first, the copycatting becomes who you are. And then you lose this thing that we're talking about, authenticity. Because when you walk out of that room and you go into another room, then you're a different Laika. Then you walk into another room, then you're a different Laika. Then it's just almost like, what is going on here actually? Who is Laika? So step one is always, please find out who you are. And if you don't know who you are, and it happens, I don't think I 100% always knew who I was. I think, like I said, to your brand evolves over time. I have evolved over time. But I've also had people that I can trust, that can keep me honest, that can be my true north. And kind of ask, yo, do you think I'm tripping right now? Or do you think I'm going crazy right now? Or do you think I'm being myself? You know what I mean? And they can be like, yeah, we don't know what's happening here because you're acting a bit different there. You know what I mean? So they can kind of steer you the right way. So it's about who you are first.
Thank you for touching on that, because my next question was, I just appreciate the fact that you said you must switch off the noise. And I don't think that's just about personal branding. I think in just in life in general, you need to know who you are and stay grounded and stay true to yourself and switch off the noise. It's easier to switch off the noise when you know who you are. And this leads me to the question of your superpower. Like, Judith, what is your superpower? How did you find out? How did you realize that this is the one thing that I'm good at? This is me, and run with it. What's the steps to discovering that? Because we all have these ideas of who we are. We all have these different strengths, but how do you narrow it down to maybe that one particular strength that you need to build a brand?
Yeah. I'm always saying jack of all trades and the master of none. Is one of my biggest problem when I talk to people about who they are. I think we all speak about being multifaceted. I am multifaceted, by the way. I really am. But I like your question. I do have a superpower. Out of all these multiple things that I can do, there's just something that I'm really good at, that I'm really great at. And I'll always say that that's strategy, right? I'm a strategist. I'm a strategist at nature. But can I do multiple things? Absolutely. Did I always know what my superpower is? Not always. I started off my career in one direction. I ended up on the other side of the direction. So at the time when I started off in market research, I thought my superpower was research. And it is. Research is one of my superpower. Then out of research came marketing. Then I was like, hey, I'm very good at that. Then out of that came sponsorship marketing. And I was like, oh, that I'm really great at, you know? And then out of that came, now we're in digital marketing. Hey, I'm very good at that too. So I think we're living in a world where we're multifaceted. You can be multiple things. You really can. And I believe in that because I am that. I know that from when I was young, from when I started off in the workplace, they always used to ask me, are you this or are you this? Are you a quanti or are you a quali? Are you a marketer or are you an insights person? You know what I mean? And I've never been able to answer that question. I'm always like, but I'm both. I'm all of those things. But I think my superpower came in when I actually started just realizing even when I was doing research, even when I was doing sponsorship, even when I'm doing marketing, even when I'm doing digital, I'm always thinking about the future. I'm always thinking about solutions in the future. I am not a short-term thinker person only. I know how to think in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term. I know how to create 3 scenarios always in life. You know, I'll be like, if we do this, this is possibly going to happen, or that. Which decision do we make? You know? But finding your superpower is something that's going to take you time. I think those that are lucky that already know what it is, good for you, and it's amazing. But I think generally, like, it takes time. It takes time. It takes learning. It takes unlearning. It takes failing. My goodness, I have failed many times. I really honestly have. I have fallen many times. I have cried many times. You know, it takes a lot of all of those things. I have had people tell me nasty things about me, and I'm just, oh, really? I have been broken by what the people have said, you know, to get to where I am now, super comfortable about who I am, super comfortable about what my superpower is, super comfortable walking into a room and just saying, yo, Judith is in the house and this is the Judith that you're going to see. But please believe me when I'm saying, if you're starting out, it just doesn't magically happen like that. I didn't just get here. It took time to build the person that I am. And like I said to you earlier, a brand evolves over time. A brand learns over time. What I haven't changed is who I am. That is still remaining the same, but I have gained more experience. I have met interesting people. I have been mentored by many people. I have had life coaches along the way, you know, just to kind of help me get to where I actually need to be. And along the way, as I said, that's when you're now kind of like, hey, actually, this is what I'm really good at. And I think the other tip that I'm going to give you that was a moment for me where I was just like, wow, that's deep, is when I wanted to do a chartered marketer from the Marketing Association. So I had studied, I had done the degrees, I had done their work, I had done the experience, I had done all of that. And I was just like, there's got to be something else. And these guys challenged me where they were like, yeah, we see your CV. Yeah, we see your experience. Yeah, we see your degrees. That's nice. But where's your portfolio of evidence? And I was like, huh? what's a portfolio of evidence? Like, doesn't my CV tell you who I am? And they were like, no, that's not how it works here. That's not how we're going to certify you. And I think for me, if there's one thing I can teach any young person, because I learned this way later in my life to find out what your superpower is to build your portfolio of evidence, not your CV. CV is good. Your resume is great. But what they say to me is, oh, you say that you've got a skill where you can write a marketing plan. Please show us an email where somebody asked you for the marketing plan, an email or proof, SMS, any communication. Then don't send us the PowerPoint that you did and claim I did this. Send us an email where you then send on the marketing plan and say, hi, Laika, as per your request, please find attached the marketing plan that I have done. And then send us an email where there is then feedback, right? Where that person goes, this is an amazing marketing plan. Or if it's not feedback, show us proof that the marketing plan was accepted and it was actually executed. And I sat there going, and I mean, my sister Santa knows this. We were printing emails. Do you understand? We're trying to create a file of my portfolio of evidence to prove that I really am Judith and I really am amazing at what it is that I'm actually doing. But that process allows you to then find out what your superpowers are. That process also allows you where you are faltering or where you're failing, or where your weaknesses are, or where you weren't even paying attention to those things, where somebody gives you a task and you're just doing it, and maybe you talked to them on the phone and you just gave it to them. And now here you are 20 years later and somebody's asking you, prove to me that you actually are all these things that you're actually saying.
Yeah.
So I think it's extremely important that I put that out there, that concentrate on building your portfolio of evidence. And that means literally that, evidence. When you say, I am an amazing speaker, great, show us your YouTube video. You know, if you're speaking at an event, please get somebody to record you. And then you can be like, oh, as you can see, you know, here's a show reel of how amazing I am as a speaker. If you're saying you're a great communicator, or if you're saying that you're very good at marketing, or if you're saying I'm very good at research, where is your portfolio of evidence to show us that? So I'm talking beyond just building your CV. So that's really how I would answer that question, and how you find out what your superpower is as you go through your journey, as you go through different jobs, as you go through different job levels, as you go through volunteering, as you go through meeting new people, in your mind, just keep thinking about, what is my portfolio of evidence here? What is it that I'm very good at? What is it that people are saying I'm very good at? Because sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you actually get it out of your KPIs.
Yeah.
And you just build on that. And I promise you, one day it clicks, and then you know, and then you go with it.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't think of the portfolio, and I think it's something I'm going to do, like starting from now on, just have content, if I say I'm good at this or whatever I'm trying to achieve, I should have evidence of my strengths. Just what are as a personal brand, what are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the things that you wish you had known? What are some of the things that you learned with experience and time that you'd be eager and willing to share about, some of the pitfalls of personal branding? And also, how do I put my best foot forward or present myself and my skills without always having to communicate it? How do I carry myself as the brand?
Yeah. Look, I don't walk around going, hello, I'm Brand Judith. Let me also be clear about that. I go around saying, hi, I'm Judith, though. I think some of the pitfalls for me is brands are built on perceptions.
Okay.
And perceptions are painful. Because you walk into the room and you think at that moment in time, you are putting your best foot forward, right? You leave home, you look amazing, you have prepared for this thing, and you walk in and you think you're putting your best foot forward at that moment in time. But the room that you're talking to are just like, whew, that was a terrible presentation. What in the world is Laika talking about? What is she wearing on that day? You know what I mean? Like, And you sit there and then you get that feedback. And as I say to you, you're a human being. A brand gets feedback all the time. I know this because I used to track research to make sure that it's on the right track, right? But it's a brand, so you don't take it personal. You start there going, oh my God, people think this is wrong, so therefore let's fix it. But the pitfalls of personal branding is you're a human being. So when those perceptions are off of who you think you actually are, it is painful. And I think it's not about looking back on what I could have learned, is I went through it. I went through the pain of people perceiving me, and I'm talking about line managers here, where I've walked into the workplace as a very young person and a serious go-getter that I've always been. And I'm really trying my best to really take on this job role and learn. But instead, my managers think that, and I remember the feedback always, she's not consistent. She gives her best in one and then she's terrible at the other things. The manager felt at the time that I was trying to take her job. There was a lot of things, and I got taken to HR as an intern. Then from HR, the HR had enough of me apparently, because I'm very argumentative, if you know me. And I argue on facts, never on emotions. So then it's, this girl is a problem, you know, she needs to be taken to CEO. I got to learn what the CEO's office was at an intern level. And he was the most amazing man, and I'll always remember that man, because he heard from everybody. And when I came back, I was like, this is my case. I'm inconsistent because I'm coming from different. Luckily for us, it was three company internships. Nobody sat down to take on what my skill audit is at that moment in time. Nobody audited my skills. Nobody checked if I'm very good at PowerPoint. Nobody checked if I was very good at Excel. It's almost like an assumption that was made. Now, in the other company, this is how they did things. But when I've come into this company, this is how you're doing things. So the inconsistency was because I actually just didn't know how to do things in this job. But funny enough, you're saying I'm very good at this, because that is what I'm very good at, you know? And that man showed me and taught me something very important. And he said to me, it's not that you're doing it, it's that you're oozing it. And I was like, say what? So it's not that you're saying you want to take your manager's job, is that you're oozing that you wanted to take your manager's job. And by the way, I was very clear that I wanted to take my manager's job. But I didn't want to take it then. I was like, here I am as an intern. I'm like literally shadowing her. And I was following her. I was walking into the rooms. If she needed me to take notes, I was taking notes, because I wanted to see how the manager speaks in this room. How do managers speak when they actually all come together? You know what I mean? I would take on those opportunities like no one's business, just to kind of know, if I ever get into this room, how should I behave? You know, how do I actually speak in this? So I think one of the biggest pitfalls, honestly, from a personal brand perspective, will always be feedback. Feedback is painful. Perceptions are painful. But like a brand does, is that's why I said to you, shut down the noise. Know who your targeted communities are. What are the targeted communities saying? These are opinions of people of you. Then you test those opinions against some people that actually know you, your true north, right? So and so say that I am stuck up. Do you guys think I'm stuck up? And if people are really honest with you and they say, you've got moments of being stuck up, then you know about that. Does that kind of make sense? So if you're going to go on this journey, you need to open up yourself to all of those things, the negatives as well as the positives. So really, that's always what I'm always going to say. I think the pitfalls for me when I look back into where I am now is I actually gained that as a strength. I now started understanding that perception is reality to certain people. So what they perceive of me at that moment is their reality at that moment. I work very hard at who I am and showing up as who I am. And if at that moment your reality is different to who I am, and I'm clear that at that moment I was actually who I am, I don't take you seriously. But if I feel that you're very important to me at that moment in time, and that maybe I didn't show up the way I should have, and you give me the feedback, then I learn from it. I take it, I test it, and then I come back and I go, I'm sorry. I'm going to work on it. Does that kind of make sense?
Well, yeah, it's important,
Yeah,
I
I
guess.
think that's the biggest highlight I'm going to say for you. Your journey, the most painful part of your journey is just not being seen for who you think you are. And you feeling like you're trying so hard to tell the world, but guys, this is who I am. But guys, this is how great I am. You know, guys, see me. What do you mean you see me like that? That's always going to be very painful for you. And yeah, but again, if you know at your core who you really are, you will take that on and just be like, oh, okay, cool. Thanks for that opinion. I do think I am X. And if you haven't formed who you are yet, take it. Go and cry, because I cried many times. Dust yourself up and go, okay, it's another opportunity to learn something new. Then you go out and you rebuild and you continue.
That's so interesting. Again, you keep reminding us that it's important. It's the core, who you are, and you carry that with you.
Yeah.
And it's important to be unique. So the myths are that there is a formula to success. There you go and get the training, you go and get a mentor, a life coach, etc. And then almost the selling point, what everybody tells us is, if you want to be sponsored by Apple, whatever, you have to be in line with what Apple, what Apple stands for. So you're here, there, and everywhere. Now you're trying to, you know, almost make everyone pay attention to you that you think might be a great sponsor. So you start acting and behaving a certain way. But again, like you said, stick to my uniqueness. How do I stay unique? How do I reinvent myself? You kept mentioning that over the years in your career, you've had to reinvent yourself. Times are changing,
Yeah.
seasons are changing, the digital platforms are changing, the opportunities are changing.
Yeah.
I mean, how is it adapting easily? Do you have to learn a new program every time? Like, how did you continue to reinvent yourself, continue to be relevant in different environments, different opportunities, but unique to who you were? And I think that's one thing that we struggle with, because we climb corporate ladder at work or whatever, you try not to fit into the dress code. You have to dress a certain way, dress how you want to
Yeah.
be dressed. There's so many
Yeah.
things that people are telling us, and I think we're all struggling with staying true to ourselves, but also upskilling or learning the skill, or learning the digital platforms, etc. How do I do that but
Yeah.
stay unique to myself? How did you
Yeah.
do that over the years?
Yeah. Look, I think there's like 2 points to your question there. I think it's about being unique. Anybody who's worked with the IC masses in this room will tell you that I can come into a boardroom all dressed up and throw away my shoes and start working. Like literally, I can do that. And I've had many people who are like, is this girl taking off her shoes? Yeah, this girl is taking off her shoes in a boardroom. Very important clients. Okay. That's that's her saying unique. Am I saying go and take off your shoes at your next boardroom meeting? No. It took a long time for me to actually hone into that and say, listen, I'm comfortable when I take off my shoes. And that's when I can think really, and I can't explain it. I don't know if there's any science to that. I have no clue. But this is what I actually really like. So when I was an intern, I never took off my shoes. Then I saw a boss, actually. He was like big, like really big, like executive top. And this man walked around from one side of the building, because this was a serious corporate, like 4-level building and all of that stuff, with socks across. And you know that moment where you're like, oh my God, he's not wearing shoes, right? But as an intern, I could never have tried that. And I never did. Okay. But I saw somebody do it. Then I saw my line manager also do it. And she was just like, I'm very comfortable when I take my shoes off. And I was just like, hold up. There's a couple of us out here. Again, I never took my shoes off then. But once I started climbing up the ladder and I knew what my superpower was, this is the thing I'd actually mention in a room and say in an interview and say, when they ask you what's the thing that we need to know about you? Oh, I take off my shoes when I really want to. So I only am from so that
but we keep going. You were talking
We'll
about,
keep going. That's what I was saying. I'm like, this conversation will happen.
yeah,
Sorry, we were finishing off authenticity and relevance. So yeah, as I said, your superpower, your super uniqueness, the thing that makes you who you are, hone into it, get to know what it is, and then introduce it much early in your life. So we always say own it, right? Own it and communicate it so that you don't surprise people and shock people in this weird, or it doesn't have to be weird. It's a thing that actually makes you who you are. And then from a relevance perspective, I was saying anybody that knows me knows that I read a lot. I study a lot. I actually haven't studied in the past 2 years and my mind is feeling like, oh, what's actually happening? But I'm meaning I haven't formally studied. But trust me, I am online. I'm educating myself on what the latest trends are. I read a lot of trends. Where are things going? What's the next big thing that's going to be happening? The fourth industrial revolution. How is it going to affect me as a marketer later on in life? What are the skills that I need to be learning in the next 5 years and 10 years? Because I truly believe that sometimes we study and we think we studied the right thing. But when we come into the workplace, and I've seen it a lot because I've hired a lot of young people, geez, your skill set is nowhere near where it actually needs to be. Or sometimes you actually feel like, why in the world did I actually even study this degree? Where did it actually take me to? You know what I mean? So I keep myself relevant all the time. I'm on Twitter all the time. I am literally checking out what people are saying. I am I'm reading. I am watching what everybody else is watching, then being able to say, no, I tried that thing, it's terrible. You know what I mean? So I'm always keeping up with the trends. I'm always checking.
okay. Yes, I can still hear you. It's just breaking slightly. Yeah. I, I can, I can. It's just the line is slightly terrible, breaking, but I can see you. Yes, hello. Can you hear me clearly? Can you see me, or yeah, I can hear
I can
you.
see you. Okay, I was just switching networks. Is this better?
Yes, go. That's better.
Much better?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I was saying you asked me a very interesting question, continuing on your, yeah, it was a multi-pronged question that I'm an influencer and I want Apple to see me. Do I change myself to Apple? And my answer to you is I'm a marketer and I look for influencers and I look for people that are authentic. I can see it when you're faking it. Honestly, I can really honestly see it. It goes back to what I was saying about the principle of branding. You know what I mean? You have to be who you are. You just happen to use an Apple phone or you like Apple. And therefore, you are doing what you do every day anyway, and you like Apple. And as a marketer, I look at this person and I'm like, well, hello, I like what this person is doing, and therefore I want to relate my brand to that person. Please don't switch yourself and change yourself and pretend to be something that you're actually not. Because the problem with that is that in the long term, they're going to catch you out. We're going to catch you out when you're using your Samsung phone, and one day you're like, hey, actually, Samsung is very good. Until you're all Apple person, you're like, oh, what the hell happened there? I am both. I am both an Apple and an Android user, but I'll always tell you that I love Apple. So I'm going to say that you don't change yourself so that the brand comes to you. You are who you are, so the brand comes to you. And I promise you, I look for those people. And I am not looking for influencers that have 5 million followers and 20,000 followers. I literally go to your page with your 10,000 followers and see how many people do you actually engage with your content. So if you're putting out something that's really interesting and I only literally see one comment, yet you've got 10,000 followers. Now, what's happening here? Does that kind of make sense? So marketers are getting smarter. Back in the days, you got away with that. Now it's almost like, nah, this person is not really influencing the way we want to influence as a brand. Yeah. So I will always remain who you are, know who you are. I mean, our favorite guy, I see Catherine is here, is because she likes to do that, is, I don't have to tell you who that is, right? I just have to, and you know who that is, right? That's a person who was just doing what he was doing. How many brands does that dude have now? I mean, I'm watching him now and I'm just like, wow, I have seen him in so many contexts because the brands have caught on. This dude is unique. There's something cool about him. We want to be part of him. He wasn't out there trying his best to fit into whichever brand, if that makes any sense. So be who you are, man. Just be authentic. Go out there, do what you're doing. The brands are watching. When they see it, they'll be like, that's the person that I actually want to align with.
That's good. I'm so glad you said that because we're so tiptoeing around brands that we're losing ourselves, our authentic selves, trying to fit these new popular people we have on social media. Now that you mentioned social media, we obviously have to be intentional about what we post. So, what would your advice be on, like, posts, for example? How should I think if I want to post something on social media and I'm trying to build a brand? What are the things that I should be aware of? What are the questions that I ask myself before I would release a post? For example, should I be aware that this may be political or controversial? Should I just be myself? What do you think? As someone to promote a brand and get caught up in maybe, there's always like trends, like the Black Lives Matter, for example, and stuff. How should I think before I post it? Are there questions I should ask myself about the post, or should I just be myself? What you suggest?
Yeah. Listen, it's one of those things, to be honest with you, I struggle with, right? I am on Twitter as Judith Mugeni because I've put my personal brand out there as Judith Mugeni, and my Twitter is open, obviously. There are many things that I find relate to me. I'm not joking. But I'm always like, whew, this is left off my brand. So at the back, I'm laughing, I'm excited. I'm probably telling people about it, like, oh my God, so this person said X, Y, Z on Twitter, but I never liked it or retweeted it. That's because that's Judith brand. That's what I meant by you can't copycat Judith. You can't be somebody else. You are CEO of Laika Inc. I am CEO of Judith Inc. And we're two different CEOs with two different personalities who have different goals and different targeted communities. Okay? So my authenticity is like I said, who I am. So there's going to be things that I like, movies and all of that stuff. It's stuff that I'm already out there telling you anyway. I like movies. I hate bad customer service. I hate it. So you're going to see that on my Twitter feed. I'm also very private in my Instagram level. So there, only the people that I want in my space are in my space. So here's what I'm going to say to you. Social media is a very important tool in building your brand awareness, as well as building who you are. You must use social media. Thank God for social media. Thank God for a generation that knows how to use social media. It is your best friend. But each platform has got its own personality, and you need to be intentional about which personality you're putting where. LinkedIn is a professional space, which, by the way, I find very boring, but it's a very professional space. You cannot be on LinkedIn and I have to say that, and I'm probably gonna get flack for that. Showing your, I don't know, your truest self on LinkedIn. and tweeting about or posting about everything that comes out. You are intentional on LinkedIn about what you're posting, because on LinkedIn you're saying professionally, I am a marketer. So you will see that on LinkedIn I post everything that is related to marketing. I will post this conversation on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Because that's everything to do with what I'm actually good at. I will post something about I attended an event and it was great because, well, that's what I do for a living. You know what I mean? So I'm very intentional about what I post on LinkedIn, and it is very linked to my skill set, and it is very linked to my, remember what I said to you, targeted audience. There are people there that I'm targeting. And those people need to see Judith in the form that Judith is showing herself. So I'm not copycatting. I'm not fitting myself into something that I am not. I am Judith, the professional on LinkedIn. I am Judith, the Judith on Twitter. I am Judith, my personal self on Instagram. So there, whether you like me or not, you're going to see about my family. You're going to see the fact that I love drinking wine. So it's all out there. You know what I mean? That's my personal space. That's really where I want to really show you who I truly am. So it's a very difficult space because young people, and I'm talking to you as a young person, you guys tend to take it all out there. If your brand is about that, please go ahead. If your brand is about my authenticity, is about showing who I truly am, then please go ahead. There will be consequences and ramifications for that. Some of your targeted communities will say, we see you said XYZ on Twitter. Because you know who you are and you're comfortable with the billboard, because remember, social media is a billboard, and everything you've posted out there is a billboard that is sitting on top of you right now like this, right? Because it came from me. And you're comfortable with what's happening there, and then those people call you out for it. At that moment, you go, yes, sir, I did post that. That is who I truly am. Oh, sir, I did like that political comment because I actually agree with that political opinion at that moment in time. I did like that person, even though you don't like that person, because at that moment, this is how I felt. Does that kind of make sense? You've just got to be able to be comfortable enough with the billboard and the messaging that you are putting on the billboard, because that billboard has got your name on it. Be comfortable. But if you're not comfortable, then don't post it. If you're not comfortable, then don't like it. If you feel like if somebody calls you out for it, you won't be able to, I'm not talking about defending yourself, but rather you won't be able to be like, I'm comfortable with what I said, please don't do it. Okay. And again, remember what I said, we're human beings, we evolve, we make mistakes. How many times have you seen stuff happening on Twitter because somebody said something 10 years ago, and now all of a sudden they're an activist, or they're amazing in young girls, but 5 years ago you were bullying young girls? Does it kind of make sense on Twitter? How many times have you seen all of that actually unraveling over a period of time? If you are a true person, if you have what I call social capital, in other words, you're a good person and you go out and you really show your authentic self, and those things blow up, human beings will be like, you know what, this person made a mistake. You know what I mean? This is who they were 10 years ago, man. Why are we talking about this person now like this? Because you have built social capital for people to actually defend you for that period of time. But if you haven't built enough social capital, and then, as I said, 5 years ago, you're a bully, and 5 years later, you haven't owned the fact that I used to be a bully and I have changed. I'm now doing amazing work. You're pretending that you never did any of that stuff. It will come for you. That's another pitfall of branding.
Okay. That's so important. The last question, let's put it together. You keep talking about targeted audience. How do you determine your targeted audience? What the people, and then how do you determine your core value? Why? What are the most important things to think about when I'm defining why or who I am as a brand, as a personal brand? How do I find my why? And also,
yeah. Okay. So, like as I said, building a brand takes a lot of time. So, who are you? Who are you, Laika? Who are you, Cats? I'm just looking at the people that are here. Who are you, Loiso? Who are you, Asante? You know what I mean? Who are you, Cats? Who are you? If somebody had to ask you that, how do you answer that, and how do you describe yourself? Because really that's what it is. You describe yourself as following, right? And it's a very difficult question, that it makes it sound, I make it sound very easy, but it's not. Who are you? I am Judith Mugeni. I am a mother. I am a wife. I am a sister. I am a daughter. I am a mentor. I am a life coach, I think. Not an expert in that. But I'm all about coaching people. I'm all about growing people. I'm an entrepreneur. I am a marketing strategist. Have you seen what I've done there? Like, if you had to ask me who I am able to tell you who I am. Then there's another part of me, which is my core values, right? My core values are things that don't change. So loyalty is a core value of mine. Trust is a core value of mine. When you break those things, we have serious problems, because you've now affected essentially who I am as a person. But as Judith, I've also got another layer, and this we learned from a life coach called Jo. She's been amazing about that. These are my personal values. Now, those ones are built, but they can change. That's the evolving. I grow up, I learn something new. So I used to think that the world worked this way, but actually I found out that it doesn't work that way. And I'm okay with editing that value. Does that kind of make sense? So my core doesn't change. My core values on loyalty and trust remain who they are. That doesn't change. But all these other values that are secondary to who I am, those ones might kind of, go up and down in my life depending on where I am on a state. So that's a brand. It's who I am, core values, and then my personal values around that. Then it's about my personality, right? Am I loud? Am I an extrovert? And I hate those descriptors. I need to be very clear about that. I'm generally an extrovert, but hey, I want to be introvert too at any given time. Okay, but do a personality test, please. I know my personality test and I know what it said about me. Then I'm also kind of like, yeah, I agree with you, but I still think some of those things don't actually fit. I'm one of those people that can read a horoscope and go, yeah, some of those things are me, but some of those things are not me. Does that kind of make sense? So never take what people say about you to be like, oh, this is the one. But it gives you a guidance on what your personality is. So please, those things are free. They are available online. Go and Google personality test and take your personality test, because a brand has a personality, right? So you know what your personality is. Then there is, what am I good at? What am I excellent at? What are those things that nobody can touch me on, right? I make a better cup of tea than anybody else, that kind of thing. That's your portfolio of evidence. Work on that, figure it out, look back in your life. And by the way, I am now 41 years old. I have been working for way too long. I still go back to my first skill set of working at McDonald's. I know I got many jobs because they always ask you for experience. I brought on McDonald's, I brought on Jet, I brought on American Swiss, I brought it on. I brought on things like, I always tell people, I was a cashier. Nah, man, you weren't a cashier. I am trusted with money. Okay, that's a skill that I gained from working at a McDonald's. You can trust me with money. You give me a float of 200 Rand, I return it. I was very good at making burgers. I was very good at communicating to people. And geez, I am very patient, because to be dealing with all that flack that you get from customers every day and still smile shows that I have a skill. Does that kind of make sense? So that's portfolio of evidence. Take it back to anything you ever worked on, volunteerism, any of those jobs, but don't write it as it is. Kind of expand on it, flesh it out a little bit. What does it mean? What does it mean that you're sweeping the floor? What does it mean? You know what I mean? It means that, geez, man, I can take on any task that you give me as long as I am all about delivering the job. So learn to take each skill set that you have collected as a portfolio of evidence, and then be able to communicate with a portfolio of evidence, because that's what brands do. That's what Coca-Cola tells you. It tells you it quenches thirst, and you believe it, right? So you need to be believable in the skill set that you claim that you actually have. So those are all components, literally, that you are gaining over time, that you're building. But a brand also has weakness. It has flaws. Remember, I said we're human. Please know what those are. There is no perfect human being. We all have flaws. Know what they are and hone onto them. I tell people this all the time. Oh, okay, thank you for giving me that feedback. I now know that I need to work on XYZ. Please then show us portfolio of evidence of how you worked on XYZ. You said I need to work on my people skills. You know what I mean? So I worked on my people skills. We all can't afford life coaches, but we can afford data because we are on this conversation now. So you can Google, how do you improve people skills? Because somebody told you that you needed to improve people skills. And then don't just read the first Google thing that comes out. Kind of scan it. You know what I mean? Look for an expert that's talking in that period about people skills. Then you learn about that. Then in your next interview, you describe that. You own your weakness. You walk in and you say, they said I needed to work on people skills. I therefore put the following things together, right? I read about it. I had discussions about it. I went for a coaching session on this, and this is where I am now, right? I'm a growing person. I'm a learning person, and that's really what personal branding is about. It's about learning. You have to learn. So for me, that's kind of like the totality of how you kind of building your brand. Starts off with the who you are, with your core values, your personal values, your personality, which you're going to test to figure out what you actually are, your skills, as well as your weaknesses. And then you package all of that into how you're then going to show up, right? You're either going to show up as an expert or an expert in making. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you asked me about social media. Social media now becomes, okay, now that I know who I am, how do I use social media to show up, to communicate who I am? So if I'm quirky, my social media will be quirky, right? If I'm emotional, my social media might be emotional. If I'm functional, if I'm that person who's very rational and always does this, my social media will reflect my personality that I am rational. Does that kind of make sense? So now you become intentional, to answer your other question about, you're intentional in what you're putting out there because it links back to the circle of who you actually are. And then, as they said, you're evolving, okay? So don't also be kind to yourself. Who you are today might do a bit of a shift 2 years from now, depending on who comes into your life, who your network is, the next job you're going to get, I don't know, the next place you travel to. You know, you learn something new every day to remain relevant. So it's really all about you're always evolving. I don't know if I answer your question there, like.
Yes, yes, you did. Thank you so much. I'm going to listen to the notes, replay it for myself, take some notes, so I can know that you taught us. And again, thank you so much for your time. Always been willing to
It's a
pour
pleasure.
to us. So appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you so much, Laika. Good night, everyone.